Aryan, somebody is in Dravidian. That kind of claim nobody can make because of obvious reasons. And this is the reason for which when, I was asked to take part in this, I thought I should talk about, let's say Tamil Odia contact. And once in a while, I'll also, talk about Tamil definitely. I also talk about Dravidian and Odia contact. That's probably will be, done in my paper. And Professor Balasubramanian just now talked about Kharavela, as he was a Jain king, and some 2000 years ago. And as you can see, the name Kharavela is something like, you can say, black spear, Karvelan. So you can translate it as black spear kind of thing. So he was ruling this country for quite some time, and he has an inscription which is still available in the our Udayagiri, Khandagiri caves. It's still there. If you come to Bhubaneswar, you can go to Udayagiri and Khandagiri. You can see that giant size, life-size giant image, and you can even see that inscription. So there has been a long kind of contact that shows that we don't know, because history is silent. We don't know what has happened in the past. But at least Kharavela ruled this state long ago. That shows that there was some kind of contact between these Tamilians and Tamil and Odia, not Tamilians and Odias, let's say these two languages. Then when we come to 11th, 12th century, there was a king called 12th century, Chola Ganga. He was a Chola and at the same time Ganga also. It's a very fascinating, and he started a dynasty called Ganga dynasty. But it's very, he is the person who was instrumental in building the present day Jagannath temple. And you can easily see that the height of Jagannath temple and the height of Brihadeshwara temple at Tanjavur, they are the same, 214 feet. And this height is not the only thing. It's not accidental, it's not by chance. And all of us know that since I visited that temple a few times, Brihadeshwara temple is also called Periyakoval. Periyakoval means big temple. And if you come to Puri, and Jagannath temple is also called Boda Devula. Boda means big, Devula means Devalaya temple. You can see that the same kind of thing. Height is the same, and the temple is called the same way. It is not by chance. There was definitely a contact between these two languages. And what is the most important thing is that there is at least one Tamil Odia bilingual inscription which I am aware of. And I have requested a friend of ours if he can, it has been read by many people, but I have given it to a very close friend who is a specialist in this area to help me in reading it again, so that we can see whether earlier readings were good, bad, and what has happened, etc., etc. I'm trying for that. Professor Balasubramanian, you may remember that I requested you if you can get it done. So, there is a bilingual inscription written in Tamil script and Odia script. I want to, first of all, somebody should read, then we'll talk about it from the translation theoretical point of view. Then, Professor Balasubramanian also talked about the Kalingati Parani. And, there is a counterpart written in Odisha also called Kanchi Vijaya. And you can say Kanchi Vijayam, and how the Odia kings went and, conquered Kanchi and married the Kanchi's daughter, etc., etc. All these things have happened. So, we had a very, very long and durable contact with the South. And Tamil Nadu and other we had a contact with Kannada, because Gangas are supposed to be the Chola Ganga. It's a kind of both, Tamil and Kannada both together. So this kind of thing we used to have. Number one. Number two, Odisha possesses the largest number of Dravidian languages, and no other state can claim to possess so many Dravidian languages. Of course, most of them are the so-called tribal languages, but so many tribal languages are, Dravidian tribal languages are not spoken in any other state except in Odisha. So it's obvious that Odisha had a very close contact and convergence with Dravidian. And since we are talking about Tamil, we'll talk about Tamil. Now, now let me start my presentation. Odia has been claimed to be a new Indo-Aryan language by most scholars. And they have, most scholars have said categorically that Odia is a descendant of the Sanskrit language or the Sanskrit culture. MNO, in his classic paper, India as a Linguistic Area, has very clearly demonstrated that there has been an enormous amount of give and take leading to a deep convergence among the Indian languages belonging to the three stocks only. He didn't take Tibeto-Burman into consideration those days. It was Indo-Aryan, Dravidian, and Munda. Now today, I'm, whatever I'm going to talk is inspired by a lot of scholars who have, very categorically rejected this kind of orientation without any substantial argument or evidence. Most people in Odisha believe that Odia is a straight descendant of Sanskrit. And it has nothing to do with other languages because, they don't know the structure and the culture of the South. This is Dravidian languages, structures and cultures. They don't know anything about Munda languages and cultures. That's the reason for which they always try to go for a Sanskrit etymology for everything, that all words that we have. I can give an example which is very important. Yesterday was the Snana bath ritual of Lord Jagannatha. There is a word called, he took a ritual bath yesterday, all the three deities, Jagannath, Balabhadra and Subhadra. And this time, because of this COVID-19, there were no bhaktas, nobody was there, only the pandas performed that. And yesterday, after the bath, Jagannath gets fever for 2 weeks. And that period is called Anasara. And what our scholars have done is that they have derived it from Sanskrit Anavasara. And now Avasara, Anavasara, which is semantically odd because now Jagannath will not be accessible to anybody. No Brahmin can enter the that area where, that place where he is going to stay or he has moved in yesterday. Only his kith and kin, because all of us know that Jagannath is a tribal god, Munda god. And instead of going for a Munda etymology of the word Anasara, our Odia scholars, most of them, everybody has gone for the Sanskrit etymology, that is Anavasara. So Avasara, now Avasara is Anavasara. It's semantically very odd because now Jagannath is resting. Now, if you look at the, this word in Munda languages, such as Savara, etc., it means to wipe, to, to dry, etc. Because after bath, somebody takes a bath, the water has to be wiped and things have to be dried. So if you look at that kind of etymology, it fits much better. The second important thing that I want to mention is that, all the three names that Odisha has, Odisha, Utkala and Kalinga, all these three, none of these will have a Sanskrit etymology. Nobody can have a Sanskrit or a proper Sanskrit etymology. Folk etymology is always possible. That's a different thing. But proper kind of etymology nobody has been able to give us about all these three names such as Utkala, Kalinga, and Odisha. So looking at from these points of view and keeping these things in mind, I have decided to talk about it today. And my claim is that Odisha, Odia, the Odia language, though it has close contact with Sanskritic sources, etc., lexically, but for grammar, for even for lexicon, we can easily go to Dravidian, we can easily go to Munda sources. So Odia cannot be claimed to be a descendant of the Sanskrit language. It has in fact derived its structures and lexicon from three different sources. One is Indo-Aryan, the second one is Dravidian, and third one is Munda. So this is what I have been claiming for a few years, Okay. Now, though these people, a lot of scholars have claimed that Odia is a direct descendant of Sanskrit, it is a misstatement, because I'll give you a lot of examples to show that that's not really true. The first example will be, let's say about the first person pronoun in plural. Here I know what happens in Tamil, but I cannot give you an example right now. I can give you a Telugu example. Telugu makes a distinction between inclusive and exclusive first person plural pronouns. One is memu, one is manamu. And something similar happens in Tamil also. If it is memu, memu and manamu both means we. Those of you who do not understand, Dravidian, both can be translated as we, but memu is we exclusive of the hearer, and manamu is we inclusive of the hearer. We means the hearer is also included, and for memu, here it is not included. As all of you know, the pronominal system of a language is a very rigid and closed system. It doesn't change so very easily. That's why even today you can see similarities between the English pronominal system and Hindi pronominal system. There are similarities even after thousands of years. Now here what Odia has done is that it couldn't change the pronominal system as Telugu has done or Tamil has. It cannot do that. What it has done is that it has changed the verbal, agreement with the verb. So memu, for memu and manamu, like many other Indo-Aryan languages, Odia uses only ame, means we. It's one, mu is singular I, ame is plural we. But the verb will change. If it is memu, suppose I want to say that we will eat. So if I say memu ame khai bu, means you are not included. I won't say that you are not included, you can go. I won't say that. I'll say ame khai bu. That means if you are listening to me and if you know Odia, you should leave this place. You are not invited to eat. We will eat. I'll say we will eat, but you will not eat. If I say ame khai ba, then you will stay because you are also invited to eat. Such things are not, this kind of agreement is not found in many other, I mean, you can say in almost no Indo-Aryan language except Odia. And these are the characteristics which Odia has taken from Dravidian, languages. But there are many scholars who have rejected any Dravidian or Munda influence on, let's say, Odia. And, I can quote the very famous scholar of Bengali, Sukumar Sen. He talks about Bangla. I quote him here. He says, it's now usual in linguistics treatises on Indo-Aryan to hunt for a Dravidian source. I have not done so far for the simple reason that, with the exceptions of one or two such as Ballala in early Bengali could possibly be assigned to Dravidian. The same is true of Austric. Only such a very late word as Kudi can be treated as directly borrowed from an Austric language. So in Bangla also there are scholars who reject Dravidian and Munda influence on Bengali, And just like that, many scholars have done that in Odisha, or the many Odia scholars have done that. There was only one very famous exception, Pandit Nilakantha Das, who did it long right from the 1920s. He has been arguing that no, Odia has been Odia language and culture, they have been constructed on the basis of two different sources. One is Indo-Aryan, second one is Dravidian, third one is Munda. But most people have ignored that. There is a lot of disturbance. Can somebody mute this?
Sir, Pasambon sir, Renugadevi madam, இந்த சைடு இந்த நிறைய இத கொஞ்சம் மியூட் பண்ணிடுங்க.
மியூட் தான் பண்ணிருக்கேன். நான் மியூட் தான் பண்ணிருக்கேன். பாருங்க, மியூட் பண்ணிருக்கேன்னு பாருங்க. அப்பதான் பண்ணிருக்கேன். பாருங்க.
நாய்ஸ் உங்க சைடு இருந்து அதிகமா வருது சார். கொஞ்சம் பாருங்க.
வரலையே. நான் பேசவே இல்லையே.
Thank you.
What I'll do now is that, we have Odia literature, as like many other Indo-Aryan literatures, is only 1,000 years old. I mean, whatever evidence we have got, real kind of literature. So, and the first, we don't have any literary evidence from the 10th century till 14th, 15th century. It's all inscriptions and other things we have got. I was mentioning that there was a Tamil Odia bilingual inscription. It belongs to the 15th century. So such things are there, but we don't have any written literature available, extant English literature available. The first major work is on Mahabharata, is Odia Mahabharata, which was written by Sarala Das in early, kind of, we can say he belongs to early 15th century, wrote it sometime in the second half of the 15th century. I'm sorry, he wrote it in, yes, 15th century. Now, his Mahabharata is a kind of encyclopedic cultural reservoir of, the Odia language and culture and everything. So I'll primarily depend on that text for today's talk, and I'll use only a few words that he has used to claim how these things have been there right from the 15th century, kind of contact with Tamil and Dravidian, which we find even today. Now, Sarala Mahabharata has a very interesting story which talks about the Kokua Bhaya or Kokua fear. Kokua is a word which has been used by Sarala Das, and it is a frequently used idiom in Odia language. In a day-to-day kind of language, we use it to refer to a widespread and chilling fear. When it's something very bad and chilling and widespread, we call it Kokua Bhaya kind of thing. Suppose there is a kind of, suppose this COVID and many people are dying and something like that. Oh, there is a Kokua fear among the people that, this kind of pandemic has been spreading very quickly, etc., etc. So this is there. Though most Odia speakers understand this word Kokua as an imaginary and monstrous creature, they do not possess a clear idea about it, nor is there any systematic and detailed discussion on that. On the contrary, people have different opinions about the etymology of this word Kokua. Now, let's look at this use of this word in Sarala Mahabharata. I'll do that. In the Musali Parva of Odia Mahabharata, Sarala Das describes that Sri Krishna became anxious and restless to go back to Vaikuntapura after living in this world amidst innumerable family members for 10,000 years. This is what Sarala Das has described. But he was unable to fulfill his wish primarily because of his unimaginably large family, Yaduvamsha. It was a very large family, and though he wanted to go back to Vaikuntapura, it was difficult for him. So he thought of annihilating this dynasty through a well thought out plan, which is Kokua. So because of this, the whole Dwaraka palace was under the grip of Kokua fear. And the oracle Kokua is coming. There was something like oracle from the heaven that, oh, Kokua is coming, was heard all over that Dwaraka. And all the inhabitants of the Dwaraka kingdom became terribly scared. Sarala Das has written, I hope you won't mind if I read it in Odia, because I heard many of you speaking in Tamil, which I enjoyed, and I understand a little bit of Tamil because of my knowledge of Telugu also. Let me read it on Odia. Suno ho rajana bhalina Sri Krishna je ranchile ko upaye. Dwarika bhubono koi lagila ko kokua bhoye. Abodhute subhila aila kokua. Dwarika loko jako hoile ocha bhua. This is what is found in the Musali Parva. I translate it. Listen, O king, Sri Krishna has made a plan. The Kokua fear gripped the palace of Dwarika. Strangely, it was heard Kokua is coming. The people of Dwarika became terrified. And this is how I have translated, this two couplets. Though I have translated the last word of the extract terrified, Sarala Das has used Ocha Bhua. So I will concentrate my talk on these two words, Kokua and Ocha Bhua, and try to see how these words have been, treated by other Odia scholars, and how, their arguments or etymologies cannot be accepted, why we should look for new etymologies, and I want to go for the Dravidian etymologies. Let's now first consider this one, Ocha Bhua, then I'll go to Kokua. And because it's for convenience, because the discussion on Ocha Bhua will feed into the discussion of Kokua, that's the reason for which I'll discuss Ocha Bhua first, then I'll go to Kokua. Ocha Bhua is rarely used in modern standard Odia, but it is quite common in the Western dialect of Odia, and for this reason, some scholars from that area have claimed that this word has come from standard Odia from Western Odia, because it's used very frequently in the Western variety of Odia. The scholars belonging to that area say that this word has come from Western Odia to standard Odia. But I want to mention here that Sarala hails from an area that belongs to the standard Odia speaking tract of modern Odisha. In other words, those scholars who claimed that Sarala has taken this word from Western Odia, this is something which they have not substantiated. This argument, they have not given in any argument, any evidence in support of their argument. Their main weakness is that they have adduced no evidence in support of their claim, and there are a number of lacunae and lapses in their discussion. Let's consider one statement from one of those scholars who says, and I quote, based on the regional or personal differences in pronunciation, 3 forms of this word have been listed in one of the major dictionaries of Odia called the Purna Chandra Odia Bhasa Kosha. That is Ocha Bua, Ocha Buha, and Ocha Bhua. So people of Western Odisha, especially the Sambalpur area where Western Odia is spoken, use Ocha Bhua by inserting ha as they do in the words in some other words. That's what he has said. But in some places, people say Ocha Bhua by deleting ha, by combining ha with ba. Purna Chandra Odia Bhasa Kosh, the dictionary that I have referred to, has strongly he has analyzed it as Acha plus Bhua, and as a result, its meaning has also been determined wrongly. That's what these scholars have claimed. But if we look at the dictionary, we'll see that dictionary has given five synonyms for this word. 1, unskilled; 2, aimless; 3, dumbfounded; 4, terrified; and 5, surprised or flabbergasted. All these meanings have been accepted not only by the scholars who hail from Western Odisha, but also some scholars who have compiled a dictionary of the Western Odia variety. Coming back to the variations in the form, the argument which has been given by those scholars of Western Odia that Achabua is the correct form and the other two forms such as Achabuha and Achabua are incorrect is not acceptable. Why? Because as languages do allow and show such variations due to various reasons, one of the forms is accepted as the standard one and others become non-standard. But the latter cannot be called incorrect or wrong. Then, contrary to those scholars' contention, the cause for inserting ha in Achabua is very different from the examples they have given. Because you will see that we, because of stress, do use an aspirated stop in the case of an unaspirated one. We do that. For example, dura, distant, we sometimes people they say dhura. So sakala, morning, many people say sakala because of stress. We do all those things, and something like that has happened in this case. So Achabua, this is the word, no doubt about that. And all of us know that in Dravidian, two vowels occurring one after another, it's a very little difficult kind of thing. That is the reason for which you will hear that if a word begins with a vowel in many Dravidian languages, they either insert a ya or wa or ha, something like that. That's why, a is pronounced as ye, o is pronounced as wo by many Dravidian speakers. Even arati in Telugu, many people say harati because arati is very, something which starts with a, and it has to be, there must be a kind of vowel in the beginning. As a result, it becomes harati. What it means is that Dravidian languages normally prefer CV structure in the beginning of a word, not a vowel in the beginning of a word. And that is what happens when, there is a kind of two vowels, coexisting with each other. What happens is that always a glide or a ha is inserted, and that is what has happened here. As a result, Achabua has become Achabua. And first Achabuha, and all of us know that this aspiration can be, can shift to a previous syllable, a kind of thing. That's why in Hindi and many other Indian languages, bahut, many or much, is pronounced as bhaut. And so all these things do happen. So Achabua has become Achabuha, and Achabuha has become Achabua. This is how, all these three words have come into existence. Now let's look at, the Dravidian substratum, in this kind of background, I would like to analyze Achabua or Achabuha and Achabua. According to these scholars, Achabua has been derived from the Sanskrit verb root charba, to chew. So charba, according to those scholars, has become, it means to chew. But, he says that from charba, it becomes chab in, the Western Odia variety, to bite. And so it becomes chab plus ua with a suffix, it becomes chabua, means biting. So their argument is that by adding the suffix ua to this verb root chab, which is derived from Sanskrit charba, chabua has been derived. What it means, one who bites. But, and then a negative suffix is added to that, like gyan, agyan, or gyani, agyan kind of thing. So chabua becomes achabua, one who doesn't bite or innocent. That is the argument which they have forwarded. But due to extension of meaning, this achabua, which means one who doesn't bite, now refers to amazed, surprised, dumbfounded, etc., according to those scholars. There are many problems with this derivation. First, it is highly unusual for a word to completely lose its denotative or cognitive meaning and retain only the connotative and the extended meaning. It doesn't happen in any language. The word retains its cognitive meaning. At the same time, it acquires other denotative meanings. That's what happens. But these scholars have provided no evidence to support their argument that this word originally meant one who doesn't bite. They never say that. It has never happened. And in Sarla Mahabharata also, the Mahabharata I was referring to doesn't attest this meaning anywhere at all. So, but it has only one meaning, which is surprised, dumbfounded, flabbergasted, etc., etc. Third, the word for one who bites in Western Odia is not chabua. I have collected data. It is the word who bites, because these scholars argue that chab is the root, wa suffix is added and it becomes chabua. But the word that is used in Western Odia is chabra. It's not chabua. So their argument that chap plus wa is chabua is a concocted one, and hence it is unacceptable. Now we have rejected their derivation about it's not scientific, it's not properly etymological. So we'll have to look for some other source to account for this, the derivation or etymology of this word. I will reiterate, I would like to reiterate that Odisha has a very strong Dravidian substratum, and it is noticeable in the language, culture, and place names. I have just now mentioned about the place names. I mentioned that, you know, all the three place names for the state of Odisha, such as Kalinga, Utkala, and you know, Odisha, they don't have a Sanskritic you know, a source. And if you go a little further to Bengal, I can give you these two very famous examples. You know that there is a Belur Mutt of you know, where there is a very famous Kali temple where Paramahamsa was living. Then there is a place where Tatas, the Tatas wanted to set up a car you know, factory, Singur. So you can say that Belur and Singur, the same ur that you have throughout you know, South India. So the same ur there. So if you look at the place names also, you can see lots of place names with ur suffix can be found in Odisha and Bengal and all these places. You can always see that. So this shows that if you look at, there is a very strong kind of Dravidian influence. Then other thing is that, you know, in Western Odisha, I'm talking about the Western Odia, where the scholars have been claiming that this Achabuha belongs to, you know, is in Western Odia word, and it has come from Western Odia to Standard Odia. Now, there is a very famous, you know, goddess temple there, which is in Sambalpur itself. And normally people there call it, you know, Samlai Gudi. They always use Gudi. And you know, Gudi means temple, you know, kind of thing. Kuti can become Kudi, and Gudi, you know that that's not a very difficult kind of thing. So, you know, Gudi means temple. Though, many people do not understand the meaning of Gudi. They use Gudi, but they don't understand. You can see very easily that the very famous temple, the most important temple in that place, the Samaleswari temple or Samalai temple, is called Samalai Gudi. Gudi is also a Dravidian kind of word which refers to temple. It's an extended meaning. It can be a house or whatever. That's not an issue. But it is referring to temple. It's a Dravidian word. Then again, a careful analysis of Achabua leads us to the Dravidian sources. Tamil has a number of words such as Achappu. I'm referring to Dravidian etymological dictionary now. Achappu, which means inattentiveness, absence of mind. Achabu, to droop, languish, grow, slack. Achaivu, weariness, exertion, etc. I'm referring to the, of course, DEDR I'm referring to. So it is natural for Achabu or Achaibu to become Achabu in Odia pronunciation, because Odia doesn't have this semi-vowel wa in it. And nowadays we have started, you know, using it in the borrowed words, and we have invented a letter for that. Earlier it was not there. Now, so, you know, for this, not only the form, but also the semantic point of view, you can see that the above Tamil words can be determined to be the source of Odia Achabua, which is derived by suffixing ua and a suffix, indicating the presence or presence of something to achabu. The following examples provide support to this argument. Take for example, nida means sleep. I add ua, nidua means sleepy. I said bala, hair, and I can say ua, add ua to that. Balua means hairy. I can say mother, wine. I can add ua to that. Modua, drunkard, etc., etc. Ua is a very regular kind of suffix which can be added to say that, you know, somebody has become something. So this is in all likelihood the etymological history of the word ochabua, ochabua, and ochabuha. This is what I would, this is the etymology of ochabua. So what I would say here is that I summarily reject the argument of the Western, some Odia scholars, that this word is an Odia word and it has been derived from the Sanskrit verb root charba, means to chew, and it has changed its meaning. Chabua becomes ochabua, and ochabua becomes ochabuha, and ochabua, etc., etc. My argument, I have shown that this ochabua or ochabuha or ochabua, this is from the Tamil sources. As I have mentioned, it is in DEDR 39, Achapu, Achabu, Achibu, etc., etc., and it perfectly fits so far as the phonological structure is concerned and the meaning is concerned. It you know, coincides with both. Let's now come to the other word which Sarala Das has used, and it's called kokua. Now, if you come to kokua, this is an animal, and the Western Odia scholars, they have determined its etymology from a Sanskrit word related to a kind of bird called koko. They said that there is a bird called koko, and it has been derived from that. According to the Sanskrit poetic tradition, these are love birds. These kokos are they are love birds. They prefer to live as couples. So these scholars, those Western Odia scholars, have extended their strong. They say that they have extended their strong desire for love to the excessive fondness of flesh on the part of a variety of wild dogs, and that's why, you know, they are called koko. Thus, according to those scholars, these wild dogs are called kokua. So, you know, you see, it's a kind of concocted story. So, koka is a bird, love bird. Then, you know, then they are relating it to dogs, wild dogs. Then they are saying that, oh, the wild dogs, they want to hunt animals. So that is why it's a very kind of far-fetched kind of argument, and it's a highly indirect kind of etymology. Because according to him, these wild dogs are kokua. So that's what, you know, those scholars have claimed. It can easily be seen that this comparison between koko and the wild dog on the basis of their strong inclination for love and flesh respectively, and extension of the name koko from the former to the latter is highly far-fetched, artificial, and concocted. Needless to say that these scholars have landed themselves in trouble because of their effort to derive kokua from Sanskrit. In fact, there is a Tamil word koku that has cognates in other Dravidian languages as well, and it means long beak, a beak of a bird. And most probably this word has been borrowed into Sanskrit, and later Sanskrit grammarians have traced its source in the verb root cook by adding the suffix ach. For example, Odia has a word pila, and it is Dravidian pilla or pildi or whatever you have, child. And we have koili, and it is Dravidian koil or kovil, which means temple. So pilla means child, you know, and all of us know that. Or pildi, it means a small or child, you know, kutti or whatever it is. Now, these things are used in Odia very frequently because you know, the burial ground of the Jagannath images, I'm sure some of you know that Jagannath also dies because, and the Navakalabara, new incarnation takes place. When Jagannath dies, the old body or the old bodies of all the three deities are buried in a place, and that's called Koili Vaikuntha. Koili, it has nothing to do with cuckoo, though the Odias, many Odias, not all Odias. Nowadays, people have started accepting that, well, it's a Dravidian word which means Koil or Kovil, which means temple. It's a temple burial ground kind of thing. So all these things, do happen. Then again, there is also another word used in Jagannath temple, which is for milk. It's only in Puri people use Nityani for milk. Only in Puri, town. If you come out of the Puri town, it's no more Nityani. But in the Puri town, in the temple, everybody will refer to milk as Nityani. And our people have derived it from some other source, these other scholars, but I have claimed that it is nothing but Nei and Tanni. The reason is simple. Jagannath is a Munda god, and the Mundas hate milk, and they don't, prefer milk. They don't use milk at all. So Jagannath being a Munda god, obviously milk will not be preferred. When I have told you in the beginning that it was Chola Ganga who built the huge temple that you can see right now at Puri. And obviously Ramanuja came here for the performance of the puja and other things. And when these people started, obviously they would have introduced milk and milk products in the temple. And you know that when we don't, something becomes a taboo, we always use a periphrastic construction to refer to that. All of us know that, I have seen in my own house, at home, my own family members who are highly educated, they used to use long animal rope for snake at night. They will never say snake at night because snake it becomes a taboo at night. So they say long animal or rope, that kind of thing. So milk, which they don't use milk. That's the reason they started using this periphrastic word, Neitanni. All of, since you are all, Dravidian speakers, Tamil speakers, you know that Nei is ghee, Tanni is water, ghee water or something like that, whatever, to refer to milk, because you get ghee from milk also. Now, it should be mentioned here that one of the meanings of Koka given in Amarokosha is wolf. And these animals are found not only in Western Odisha, but also in many other parts of India. But interestingly, Kokua in Sarla Mahabharata is very different from this animal, because let's see this description. If you read the description of Sarala Dasa, you can easily see that it is not an animal, it's a bird. After the spread of Kokua fear in Dwaraka, I have mentioned it to you that Sri Krishna wanted to go back to the heaven Vaikuntapura by annihilating his very large family, Yaduvamsham. And for that, what he created this kind of plan to annihilate the dynasty. Now, this is what Sarala Das has written. Devaki, I again quote, I'll first read it in Odia and then translate. Devaki pacharile sunoho Vasudeva, kokua boli kari se otoi kebono jibo. Now, I translate. Devaki asked, listen, O Vasudev, which is the animal called Kokua? This is what Devaki asks Vasudev, Krishna. Now Krishna answers, Jojone jojone bhujotara sapato goti akhi antarikhe uduthai achai tara navapachi. It's, I translate, its hands are spread over miles and it has 7 eyes. It flies in the sky and has 9 wings. Now, it is clear from this description that Kokua is certainly not a dog-like animal as some scholars have claimed. Rather, it is more like a bird that has wings as well as, it can fly. This observation gets support from the following statement of Dwarika's residents. What they say, keboloi motego kokua gilu thila, keboloi kahaku kene gilid gala, keboloi antarikshe udi gala dhari, ke kahaku ta au nuarile bari. I translate. One says Kokua was swallowing me. Another says it swallowed somebody somewhere. Another says it flew to the sky holding someone. Then nobody could recognize the others. So you can say that if something is flying, it cannot be a dog-like animal. It has to be a bird. So it should be noted here that Koku in Dravidian means long beak. In Tamil, if you go to DEDR, it means long beak. Not only that, Tamil uses the word kuku, that means loud cry due to fear, anger, or pain. And its cognates have the same meaning in other Dravidian languages. So, but the question is, how did Sarala Das know this word? How did Odia get it? Or how did Sarala get this word? There are two possible answers to this question. First, because of the strong Dravidian substratum, this word might be found in Odia. Second, the historians of Odisha hold the view that Sarala Das had traveled through most parts of South India as a member of the Gajapati king Kapilendra Dev, who ruled over Odisha from 1435 to 1467. Sarala Das, who wrote the Odia Mahabharata, was a part of his army. Kapilendra Dev, the king, founder of the Gajapati dynasty, conquered and annexed various parts of then South India in his kingdom. According to a top-class historian, Krishna Chandra Panigrahi, he says there is every evidence to show in his Mahabharata that the poet Sarala Das served the Gajapati army in his youth. In his Mahabharata, the poet shows a remarkable knowledge of the historical kingdoms and the historical places of his time. But with geography of Krishna Godavari Delta, he shows a greater acquaintance which he appears to have acquired through personal association. Sarala Das, during his military service under the Gajapati army, has heard some stories relating to the history of the Bahamani kingdom, which he has utilized in modified forms in the Mahabharata. Many Dravidian words such as Mudusuli used in Sarla Mahabharata strengthen unquote. I have unquoted that. Now it is my statement. Many Dravidian words such as Mudusuli used in Sarla Mahabharata strengthen Panigrahi's statement. So it is quite possible that Sarala Das has utilized Kokku long beak with suffix ua that expresses the presence through which he has created the word Kokua, and most probably the other Dravidian word Kuku, loud cry due to fear, anger, or pain, has also contributed to the creation of this word. The following extract from Sarla Mahabharata very clearly demonstrates the intensity of fear by Kokua. I will first recite whatever Sarala Das has written. Sehi dino ratire jadove samaste soichanti adabhute dekhile je kokuar murti maro maro boli padileko bobi laudi bulaino maranti asambhavi re re karo sabode hoile baharo godabanti samaste kokuaku maro maro. Again it is from Museli Parva. I translate that. That day at night all the Yadavas were asleep. All on a sudden, they saw the Kokua's image. Kill it, they shouted loudly and started beating with the sticks in an impossible manner. They came out with blustering, challenging words. They all chased Kokua to kill it. Now, it very clearly shows that the argument that Kokua is from Sanskritic sources cannot be accepted for this reason. And I would try to argue that just like Ochabua or Ochabuha or Ochabua, Kokua can be shown to have a Dravidian, or to be specific, Tamil source. To conclude, to sum up, the main points discussed in my discussion today are as follows. Though some scholars have tried to derive these two words used in Sarla Mahabharata, which Sarla belongs to a standard Odia speaking region. He belonged to the Cuttack district earlier. Now it has become a different district. And these two words, Achabua and Kokwa, used in Sarla Bharat from Sanskritic sources, they have tried to derive their etymology, but their derivations are not convincing due to the methodological problems. Then most probably these two words derived from Dravidian Achabu and Koko or Kuku respectively. A strong Dravidian substratum of the Odia language and culture, and Sarala Dasa's sojourn to South India as a member of the Gajapati King Kapilendra Dev's army and expeditions lend support to this hypothesis. Then the founder of the Ganga dynasty, Chola Ganga, was half Tamil and half Kannadiga, and the presence of the bilingual Tamil Odia inscription also lends support to the claim that once upon a time, there was a close contact with Tamil and Odia. With this, I'll just give you one more thing, and that will be end of it. What I will try to show is that all of you know, how, I'll try to show how the Odia writing is also influenced, show similarity with Tamil. And you can say that this is A. If you can see that, this is A. It's just like Tamil. This is O. This is O, just like Tamil. And, I'll have to do some further research to show, how, this has happened, what kind of relationship. And something similar also happens in Bengali. Bengali also writes A like this and O like this. So that kind of, so Odia and Bangla, they show very similar kind of, for A and O, it is for A and this is for O. It discontinuous kind of thing. You can say A and A, that kind of thing also happens. But this is something for the future. And thank you for this opportunity. Vanakkam.
Thank you.
சரியா கேட்கல sir, not clear. Your voice is not clear, sir.
I invite.
It's not clear, sir. It's not clear, sir.
Do you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
now
sir.
it is
Yes,
okay.
Hello.
Hello. Now it is okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay. But then, thank you, Professor Mohandi. I invite the members to make some quick comments or some questions.
Hello, Professor.
Chapandi, Solange.
It's an interesting talk, definitely, and I really appreciate actually your effort in continuing this work such a long time, and you were asking some help from me. I couldn't make it. Actually. I'm sorry for that. You will be asking me Kalapira and all. Anyway, thanks, Professor. It's a wonderful talk. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Yeah,
Yes.
Ramamurthy.
Professor Mohandi.
Chapandi.
Banara. It's a wonderful talk. You have taken only two words, Kokua and Ajapua, and try to find the Dravidian root. But there is a, you told Odia is well in the substratum of Dravidian languages. Most of the tribal languages are from Dravidian.
Yes.
And the first, the king, Karibalaba.
Karavela.
During ancient time, and Karavela. So it's a Karavela, Velan, black kind of thing. And there is a Prakrit literature called Satasai. Satasai uses most of the Sangam imageries in the in Satasai, and also Munda tribal poems are more or less similar to Sangam literature. I thought you could have, taken those things and you can relate our Sangam literature and Tamil connection. But it's also a wonderful thing. You have taken, it's a very nice research. But still, Sarala is a different kind of Mahabharata. And why you have taken only these two words? What are the other sources? As if all the other words are Sanskrit and only these two are Dravidian.
No, I have used many words. I have mentioned Naithani, Nityani.
Yeah, Naithani.
I have mentioned Gudi.
Okay.
I know the number of words I have mentioned in between. I have mentioned Pilla. I have mentioned, all these things I have mentioned. Koil, Nagar Koil, and Koil. I have mentioned all those things. Look, now I want you to invite me again.
Okay, so you can talk again. Okay.
I think he was talking about this Manda, that tribal songs and Sangam. I think that is a different. I think there is a different topic. Ramurthy, am I right?
Okay, okay.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir. Hello, can I ask, sir?
Who is speaking?
Yeah, my name is Brahma. Actually, I am from the Bharatiyar University, the linguistics department. I'm a student of MA, sir. Can I ask, sir?
Yes, please go ahead. Please.
Yeah, the thing is Al-Chabwa. For that, we can break it as a plus Chabwa. So Chabwa, I think, and Wa, the ending probably is an ending Wa, and Chab is the I think the core of it. What to say and if you see the Tamil language, for example, sapd or something. So the meaning is same.
Google Meet training program.
Hello.
Yes.
So the cha becomes actually sir becomes cha in so sapd chabwa becomes as like the meaning is same, to munch or to eat. So I think that the sapd or sap something like that, sapd. So this word might have changed to chabwa, and then for example, if someone cannot munch, for example, then it's a startling thing, it's ironic, and so probably this is the way it might have come, sir.
Wait, look.
Okay. Let him answer. Okay, he got the question. I think. Let him answer.
Can I answer?
Yes, please. Go ahead, sir.
No, can be a negative prefix in Dravidian?
Are you asking me, sir?
So that is the issue.
What do you want, sir?
I'll give an example. Look,
okay.
Let's say, I mean, do you understand some Hindi Urdu?
Yeah, I speak Hindi. I understand Urdu. I understand Pali.
You don't have to tell me what all you know. I don't want that. Look,
yes.
Bebafa, Behaya, Bemurba, etc., etc. You will see that all words which have been borrowed, which have been taken from Perso-Arabic sources, will have this day. So you cannot have an Indo-Aryan prefix with a Dravidian word. You cannot say chab, sapudu, chabu, and from Indo-Aryan. This kind of combination is very difficult to find.
Okay, sir.
That is the reason for which I will go for.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Shall I ask? Pasubban, shall I ask?
Please.
Yes, Dr. Pasubban. Yes, Dr. Pasubban.
Professor Panchanan Mukhabanti, I welcome your lecture. It's a good one. It is a good contribution to the field of Dravidian as well as Tamil linguistics. You mentioned the many things related to Tamil and the Chola Ganga and the Ganga dynasty. Then it talks about Periya big temple and Kalingattu Parani, Kanji Vijaya. So that you have given many such things. Like that, you give some the two words, Kokkuva and Achapu. Achapuva. Okay, excellent. My question is, in Dravidian, we have a kinship systems. The kinship system, we have a very strong kinship systems.
Yeah.
Like that, is there any kinship system? Any kinship word, like mother's brother?
Yeah.
Maternal uncle, like that we have a very strong cultural background of the Dravidian kinship. Like that, any influence in the Tamil substratum or Dravidian system, do you have it? That is my question, Professor Panchalamurthy. We met long back. We met long back, Professor. Okay.
Yes, good. Please, Professor Mohanty.
Yeah. Actually, I have a paper on the other maternal uncles in Indian languages. There is a little difference.
Okay.
I have, in that paper, I have quoted Radcliffe Brown and said that in this culture, the maternal uncle is a male mother. Is a male mother. Anything that happens in the house, the maternal uncle must be there. Whether there is a death, whether there is a birth, whether there is any festival.
Yeah.
The mother's brother has to be there. And what is very interesting is that you will be surprised to know that among the so-called lower classes, lower class, people of Odisha, they also marry the maternal uncle's sister, but it is not very common. Many people will not say that in the public.
Oh.
Sir, thank you. But I think Professor Dr. Pasaban wanted to know the exact kinship terms. You are talking about the function of the maternal
Mama.
No,
Mama.
I said that.
I want the kinship term for mama. Do you have that word?
I said that. I said it is mamu or mama.
Yeah, you have.
Yes, the same word.
Thank you. Okay.
Sir, Karnagaran wants to speak, I think.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Namaskaram.
கேக்குதுங்க சார், நீங்க பேசுங்க.
Yes, sir, please go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm listen to Dr. Mohanty after a long time. It is interesting. We wanted to do some research, especially in comparative and historical linguistic studies, not only in Dravidian but also in contrast with the Indo-Aryan and other groups after a long time. So I think your initiative, I know, as you mentioned, there will be many other words also. Definitely, the root forms, cognates, all you can identify if you go through carefully and do some further research. So thank you for initiating this kind of research studies. I think you should encourage not only your students, I think our students who listen to you or our scholars will take more interest in this kind of studies. As you mentioned, as Dr. Balasubramaniam mentioned, the Kalinga and Dravidian relationships are really great in those days, and it should do something for the upliftment of not only comparative studies but also to the Tamil Odia relationship in the coming years. I think you should show some way, and you should work with our scholars, our researchers, in order to do some work. Better, you can send your scholars, and our researchers also can come and work with for a few minutes, at least a few months, at least, to do some work, so that your initiative will be very useful in the coming years for Indo-Aryan and Dravidic studies, especially with reference to Odia. Okay, thank you very much for taking that much interest in giving this lecture and also initiating some work in the unforgotten field, comparative studies in linguistics. Thank you, Dr. Mohanty. We will meet sometime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. If already it is nearing 8:20, if
thank you,
sir.
No
question.
I have
if any one or two questions quickly.
Hello, sir.
I have
one more question, please. One more question, maybe last question.
I'm Renuka Devi.
Please.
Yes.
Who is speaking?
Yeah, Professor Renuka
yes,
Devi.
please, madam. Go ahead.
Good evening.
Please go ahead.
Good evening, Professor Renuka Devi from Madurai.
Yes, yes, as usual, a very good lecture. When I visited Orissa, I saw many Tamil place names. For example, Tamil Kudi. So, as well as I saw the reminiscence of Sangam Literature lifestyle seen among the Mudia people. Is it because the tribals are, the Tamil tribals are living there, or is it because of the some relations between Odia and there are so many placements. Dr. Balakrishnan is at the placement. So I also came to see that name Tamil Kudi in Odisha.
Professor Renuka Devi.
Sir.
I have identified thousands of words in Odia which are from the Dravidian sources. And I can tell you that most of the village goddesses' names are again Dravidian names. And I can say that they have very, it's almost like Tamil. You know that Tamil cannot have A at the end of a word, it should become I. That's why Madurai. That's why Dosai. A lot of goddesses' names are there, Birajai, Kalijai, etc. A lot of goddesses' names are there. But this is for future, Professor Renuka Devi. I don't want to complete everything in today's lecture. There must be something for future.
Thank you, Professor.
Hello, sir.
I think it is already nearing 8:20. If other members or students have some questions, we will share Professor Mohanty's email ID. He is always very quick in responding to the emails, and they can very well communicate with him and get things, I think. Shall we conclude this with a vote of thanks?
Sir. Sure, sir. Sure,
Dr.
sir.
Kamachi?
Okay.
Somebody is
Ramesh.
online.
Ramesh is ready
Hello,
to
sir.
give
Okay,
order.
please, Dr. Ramesh.
Good evening to I am happy to propose a formal vote of thanks to authorities of Tamil Moriya Sangam and participant on behalf of Annamalai University and on behalf. First, I thank you to our respected Professor Panchanan Mohanty, Professor and Head of the Department English, GLA University, Uttar Pradesh, for accepting our invitation in spite of his busy schedule and deliver the lecture on Tamil, Odia, contact and ETC amplifications through online mode. I wholeheartedly thank you, sir. My special thanks to our convener, Professor L. Ramamurthy sir, because he took effort to arrange the speaker today's series and extended his effort next lecture also. Thank you very much, sir. I extended my sincere thanks all the authorities of TMS and technical people, especially listener of this program, and thank who responded and actually interrupt Professor Rajendran, Professor Ramamurthy sir, Senior Professor Karnakaran sir, student Brahma and Dr. Pasambon with this section. I express my sincere thanks to organizer of TMS secretaries of various institutions or made your series of lecture here grand success. Once again, I thank one and all.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Namaskaram.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.
ஹலோ
எட்டரைக்கு மேல வார்டு போயிட்டு முடிச்சிட்டேன். Yes, sir, it is closed.
போஸ்ட் செஷன் இருக்கா?
ஒன்றும் ஏதும் பேச வேண்டியிருக்கா?
இல்ல குமரேசன் ஏதோ எட்டி பாக்குறாரு.
இல்ல இல்ல
நீங்க தெரியலன்னு எட்டி பாக்குறாரு.
காமாட்சி சார்
ராமமூர்த்தி கிட்ட பேசுங்க. இருக்காரா போயிட்டாரா?
ராமமூர்த்தி சாருக்கும் சேர்த்து நன்றி சொல்லியாச்சு.
ராமமூர்த்தி வீட்டுக்கு வந்துட்டாரு தெரியுமா?
அப்படியா? ஊர்ல இருந்து வந்துட்டாரா?
பார்த்தா தெரியலையா மகிழ்ச்சியோடயும்?
ஆமா ஆமா கொஞ்சம் ஃப்ரெஷ்ஷா இருக்காரு. ஆமா
ஃப்ரெஷ்ஷா அங்க தூங்கு முஞ்சி போல இருந்தாரு 2 வாரமா.
ஆமா 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 கரெக்ட்.
இப்ப வீட்டுக்கு
அங்க இருந்து துரத்தி விட்டாங்க போல இருக்கு. அங்க கொரோனா வந்துருச்சு.
இப்ப வீட்டுக்கு வர வந்து ஓடிட்டாரு காணோம். இல்லாட்டினா அங்க என்ன சிங்கிளா இருக்கணும் உட்காந்துட்டு இருப்பாரு.
அதான்
அதனால
நிறைய பேர் போயிட்டாங்களா?
ஏங்க அவங்களுக்கு எல்லாம் வேலை இல்லையா?
எங்களுக்கு வேலை இல்ல. 33 பேர் இருக்காங்க. அதான் கேட்டேன்.
முரளி சார் பாத்துட்டு தான் இருக்காரு நீங்க பேசுறது.
இல்ல 33 பேர் அப்படியே உட்கார்ந்துட்டு இருக்காங்க.
33 பேரும் ஆன் பண்ணி வச்சுட்டு வேற வேலையை பார்க்க போயிட்டாங்க.
முடிச்சிட்டு கிளம்பிட்டாங்க
சார். இல்ல சார் நாங்க எல்லாம் இருக்கோம் சார்.
தேங்க் யூ பிரேம்.
இருக்கறவங்க எல்லாம் ட்ரான்ஸ் கொடுங்க.
சொல்லுங்க முரளி.
இடையில நான் யுஎஸ்க்கு போயிட்டு வந்துட்டேன்.
தெரியுமே. இது ஒரு வசதியா போயிருச்சு எல்லாருக்கும்.
செல்போன்ல ஒரு உங்க
சரி
ஐபேட்ல வாசு.
ஹலோ
சார்
வாங்க மேடம். உங்க
எல்லாம் கேட்டுட்டு தான் இருக்கோம். நீங்க உங்க சாட்டிங் கேட்டுட்டு தான் இருக்கோம். சரி அதுவும் ப்ரோக்ராமோட எண்டு போடுறதுன்னு நினைச்சிட்டு கேட்டதுக்கு அப்புறம் நம்ம விஷ் பண்ணிட்டு வெளில வரலாம்னு நினைச்சேன். கேட்டுட்டு தான் இருக்கோம். அதான் வெளில போல.
இல்ல சும்மா கடைசியில கொஞ்ச நேரம் பேசிட்டு கிளம்பிடுவோம்.
அதான் சார் உங்களுக்கு அப்புறம் சாப்பிடுற வரைக்கும் பசிக்கிற வரைக்கும் உங்களுக்கும் அப்புறம் என்டர்டைன்மெண்ட் பண்ணணும்ல. அப்புறம் நாங்க லேடிஸ் அடுத்தது வேலை கிச்சனுக்கு போயிடுவோம். நீங்க என்ன பண்ண முடியும்? சாப்பாடு குடுக்கற வரைக்கும் பேசிக்கிட்டே இருக்க வேண்டியதானே? சரிங்க சார். தேங்க்யூ. நான் போறேன் கிச்சனுக்கு போகணும். பை. தேங்க்யூ சார். தேங்க்யூ ஃபார் அரேஞ்ச்மெண்ட். நல்லா போச்சு. நல்லா இருந்தது. யூஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருந்தது சார். தேங்க்யூ சார்.
செல்வகுமார்
சார் வணக்கம் சார். வணக்கம் உமா.
வணக்கம்.
வணக்கம். எங்க அவருக்கு ஒரு அக்னாலஜ் பண்ணலாம்னு சீக்கிரம் வைண்ட் அப் பண்ணிட்டீங்க.
ஆமா அது பால் வந்து முடிச்சிருவாரு.
அவரு டைம் வந்து டைம் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட்ல பார்த்தாரு. 7 to 8 அதுக்கு
கொஞ்சம் நம்ம ஆரம்பிச்சதே கொஞ்சம் லேட்டா தான் இருந்தது. ஒரு 10 நிமிஷம் லேட்.
செல்வகுமாரோட ஸ்டூடண்ட் வாதியார்
தான் 8:30 வரைக்கும் கொடுத்தாரு.
அதுதான் அவருக்கு அதுக்காக தான் பார்த்தேன். சோ ஜஸ்ட் ஐ வாண்ட் டு
நாகமா
மேடம் கேள்வி கேட்கணும்னு நினைச்சோம்.
இந்த நாகமா மேடம் பேசுறது ட்ரை பண்றாங்க. அவங்க
ஆமா என்னன்னு கேளுங்க.
நாகமா மேடம் வணக்கங்க
சார். சார்ட்ட கொஞ்சம் ராஜேஷ் சார்ட்ட பேசணும். இந்த நாள் வாடகை
யார்கிட்ட பேச போறீங்க
சார்? வணக்கம் சார். வணக்கம் சார்.
வணக்கம். யாருகிட்ட பேச போறீங்கன்னு சொல்லுங்க மேடம்.
யார்கிட்ட பேசணும்?
ராஜேந்திரன் சார்ட்ட பேசணும் ஐயா.
ராஜேந்திரன் சார். ஆமா
யாரு? ஹலோ சொல்லுங்க
சார். வணக்கம்.
வணக்கம். நல்லா இருக்கீங்களா?
வணக்கம். நல்லா இருக்கீங்களா?
ஓகே சாரி. நெல் வெயிட் பண்ணி சொல்லு. நல்லா இருக்கிறேன்.
நல்லா இருக்கீங்களா சார்? ரொம்ப ஆச்சரியமா இருக்கு சார். பார்த்தே ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமா இருந்தது.
ஏதோ பொழப்பு ஓட்டிட்டு இருக்கேங்க. கோயம்புத்தூர்ல இருக்கிறேன். நல்லா இருக்காங்க. யார கேக்குறீங்க?
ஓகே சார்.
உங்க மேடம் சார்.
நல்லா இருக்கு. இப்ப
எப்படி சார் நல்லா இருக்கீங்களா?
நல்லா இருக்கு
சார். ராஜேந்திர சார்.
சொல்லுங்க.
முரளி பேசுறேன். எப்படி இருக்கீங்க?
நல்லா இருக்கிறேன். எல்லாம் முரளி இந்த இவருடைய நல்லா இருந்தது. முரளி நம்ம வாசுதே நல்லா இருந்தது.